Hi everyone. I wanted to talk to you guys this week about Wei Wei. Wei Wei is a Chinese dissident artist, and some believe that he is the most important artist of our times. Um, and I would like to find out what you think. So this is going to be an introductory video to him and his work. And then in discussion board, I have placed a video I'd like for you to watch, and then please respond to that. So we are going to get started. So Ai Weiwei was the son of A Quinn, who was a poet, author, and someone who was respected by the Chinese rule. And very intelligent man, very honest man. And then the rulers did something that he didn't agree with, and he wrote about that. And so when Ai Weiwei was very young, maybe 2 or 3, his whole family, because of what his father wrote, got sent to a part of China where they lived, and his father was sentenced to 9 years at a work camp. And you can see the photo in the bottom right, which does not have his father in it, but it just is an example of what a work camp is, where you're watched all the time and you're kind of sentenced to manual labor, but you do get to live with your family. So instilled in Ai Weiwei at a very young age was to do the right thing, to stand up for what you believe in. And he respected his father very much for what he did. It was a hardship, certainly on everybody involved, but his father was, instilled that he was doing the right thing. So think about that kind of, childhood formulation. It will add to what kind of man and artist Ai Weiwei is. In the Ai Weiwei was born in like the 56, I want to say. So he's in his 60s now. And in the 1970s, he did go to an art school in China. He wasn't really getting what he wanted out of the school. So in the 1980s, he was able to secure a visa to take classes in New York City. And he moved to New York, barely able to speak English, and lived there for a few years. You can see here in front of some prints that he made. Ai Weiwei is a interdisciplinary artist. He does sculpture, he does videos, he does photography. Interdisciplinary just means, doing a whole bunch of different types of art. Here he is outside of Tompkins Square Park, 1986. I want to say the most kind of important thing that happened to him when he was in New York City was exposure to artists that he had not been able to see and learn about in China. And one of them is Marcel Duchamp, who, if you guys recall, did the urinal and other ready-mades where he would buy things and call them art, if you recall that. So Ai Weiwei really enjoyed, liked that he was pushing boundaries really far as what could be accepted as art. The second artist was Andy Warhol. And Andy Warhol in the 80s was still very popular, very current. And remember, the thing about popular culture and turning, the idea that anything could be art and consumerism and all of those ideas were very new. Not new, but he was really living them and getting exposed to them during this time in America. So those two artists were very influential. So he did a lot of photography, which I would tell you as an instructor is very solid, very good photographic work. But nothing really, kind of um, really in it. Here he is selling some of his art on the streets, trying to make money as a young student. But again, here's Marcel Duchamp, a variety of his work. Um, and then this is the first piece that he makes. Now, I should say we've jumped, 10 years or so. Ai Weiwei leaves New York because his father is ill. So he goes home to be with his family. And this is one of the first pieces that he makes. And it's this piece that really gains the awareness of the entire art world. So what he's done, this is, as you may know, um, Chinese people are very well known for their construction ability and their artisan skills, and pottery is one that they have mastered. And so here he has taken a, Ming Dynasty vase, and he has painted the Coca-Cola logo on this price, I don't know, priceless, but very expensive, very, seeped in culture item. And he stamped it with this, you know, American brand of consumerism. And so this juxtaposition between this old heritage and the new world, if you say, this is provocative. This is interesting stuff and somewhat controversial. The next year, he takes this series of photographs of him destroying another vase, right? And it's almost to say, um, Chinese needs to, the Chinese culture, the Chinese artist, he, as both of those things, need to move beyond the past into the present. So here he is, almost, using another vase, rather expensive, not rare. Let's not, it's not necessarily the most rare thing, but expensive and valuable, and he's destroying it and saying, let's leave this in the past. Instead, let's move forward, and I'm going to move forward, and I'm not going to look back. Or if I do look back, it's going to be in reference to what's going on now. So this was another piece that the art world took notice of. And he became, he started to gain interest. And those, who were writing about contemporary artists started writing about him even in the mid-90s. He was able to do some traveling because he started getting shows and things like that. And he started to take these kind of self-portraits. And he's not just flipping off like our government. It's not about, the American government versus the Chinese government, because he's flipping off Chinese government as well. But he's also flipping off Viking Cruise Line and the Eiffel Tower and all these different things, and it's almost like, um, how do these things affect him? How do these things get into his daily life? And this is the way he's interacting with it. Is he being a rebel? Absolutely. Is he being, um, controversial? Absolutely. Is he trying to get us to pay attention? Absolutely. And we may not like it when we look at the center top image and, oh my God, that's our White House. How dare you? But in the scheme of things, who do you trust? Who do you trust? What do you trust? What is real? And so it's these kinds of questions. If you open your mind up to his whole, kind of philosophy of art making, it does make sense. In 2005, Ai Weiwei, with his travels and his experiences and everything, he became aware of the internet. And the internet is highly censored in China. And it was back then, it is still today. But so he started a blog, and he started, various things where every day or whenever it came to him, he would write out his thoughts about what he was going through, what was happening, whatever. And he built up a really large following. And, like this blog says, it's writings, interviews, digital rants. political and themed, social and themed, or just, what was going on in his work, his thoughts. The government did try to shut it down several times. Excuse me. And he had so many friends out there that they would keep kind of reconnecting him, and they would figure out a way to kind of relay his thoughts to the outside world. So he did have a lot of support from the very beginning because people recognized what he was doing was important and they wanted to help. They found his message important. So here he's got some more vases from, Chinese artisans that make them. And here he's covered them in house paint. So, you know, again, going from the past and the present, mixing those two things. He designed when the Olympics, the Summer Olympics were in China, he designed this. It's called the Bird's Nest. It was where they had the opening ceremony and the closing ceremony, and I think they did track and field here too. And so um, China understood that he was becoming very popular, and they did kind of want to use his name and his reputation. So they did ask him to design this. But in the construction of it, when he started asking questions about, how well it was being built, how safe, and how all those things, and he realized they were cutting corners, he really backed away from the design. And by the end of it, they hardly mentioned that he was the one who designed this at all. Luckily, nothing ever happened, and everyone was safe during that time period. So he's an architect. He's a sculptor. Look at these. He's again using materials from his culture's past, these wooden screens, and created this, really remarkable design. It's really quite beautiful. And then it was weather had taken it down, and even that was beautiful. He did not make his work on his own. He used the skill of the Chinese to make his work. Here in America, we may make fun of the fact that every little devices gets made in China, and they make all these little things. But for long times, they were building massive things, and we're talking about very creative people, very ingenious work ethic that these people have. And so he would encourage various people um, that maybe were losing their jobs to machines and stuff and hire them. And they were his builders, they were his workers. And so in some ways, he's very contemporary in that he's not always, he conceives the idea, and along with other artisans, he helps build it. He's got a little bit more hands-on than some others, but so here he amassed this collection of old work stools. And then he built various sculptures out of these stools. And this same shape is repeated. He's made many of these. But then if you look at how they're entwined, they're really, really kind of creative. And some of these now share a same leg. It doesn't always seem so obvious, but there was a lot of care that went into this. And it was with the help of these other workers that helped him figure that out. You know, again, talking about the details and the unity of many parts making a piece. He did a lot of chandeliers like this, and I think they're really quite beautiful and elegant and decadent. Um, but it's always about all the little parts that make the whole thing. The little parts that make the whole thing work. Is another beautiful piece. This is 1 ton of tea that he compressed into a cube, and then it sat in the gallery. So can you imagine the smell that you're hit with when you walk into this space? And then over time it decays, and it's got that kind of bitter, sour. kind of feeling. And so really he's an amazing artist that he can work with so many different kinds of elements. I'm going to butcher this name. The name is up in the top right corner. But he built and opened this art studio gallery space in Beijing for other artists and to kind of help individuals kind of make their own statement in China. That's the one thing about China. They censor what people say and all of that. And so Wei Wei is challenging that from the very beginning, as his father did. 2008 was a big year because it had the Olympics and it did all this stuff. And then they had, I think it was 2008. Anyway, in May of 2008 at 2:30 p.m., there was an 8-point earthquake, and a very large earthquake. And it was in this Chengdu area where he was living in Beijing. You can see from the map, it's not exactly near him, but it was a very dark day. 69,000 people were killed in that one moment. 18,222 are still missing. And 4.8 million people became homeless in a city of 14 million. They couldn't go back to their homes, basically. So the people that might have been out of town or work out of town were safe, but families, children died. This event really affected Wei Wei, and it really changed his life. I'm going to show you a video, and it's going to talk about that.
I'm curious about how a piece like Straight emerged from the Sichuan earthquake for you. I get the feeling that when the earthquake first happened, you weren't thinking about making art, that you had to get socially or politically involved.
Before I went to Sichuan, that's 2008, I've been involved with internet for 3 years. So I daily would write down my opinion because I want to exercise the skill of writing, to practice that. And there's so much to say. You know, when the internet, that time is still a golden time for China, because that time the government doesn't know how effective or how important the internet would be, and still haven't found out the right skill to shut it off. And suddenly the earthquake come. In front of that disaster, for 6 or 7 days, I didn't write anything. You know, everybody feel very strange and say, Wei Wei, what's happened to you? You know, even small matter, you give out opinions, but such a disaster, I just feel speechless. You know, this is too overwhelming for me. I couldn't find right language to describe that incident. I'm not prepared for that. So I told myself I have to go to be in there. So only when I'm in there, whatever I say would be relevant. Otherwise, I should stay away with this, because this is beyond my comprehension. So I went there. When standing in this earthquake area, then I feel the wind, the air are really horrifying. You have bodies under the knees, and you feel in the wind, you feel the death is there. I never had such a feeling. So I come back. We don't know what to do, you know. So I think at least what we can do is to find out who is dead. And we only want to focus on the children, because I see too many students' backpacks thrown everywhere, textbooks, pencils. So I said, let's just ask, who are those people and how old are they? And nobody gave us an answer. So I said, okay, maybe I do research myself. It's very normal. So we did a so-called a citizens investigation, asking people from the internet. That time, if I send out one message, it will be thousands or hundreds of thousands of people would watch, and they will say, "We want to join you." So we send out about 40 groups, and of course, they all got arrested. We start making documentary film. I think those need to be recorded. So we interviewed about hundreds parents of those students. At the end, we found about 5,000 students. And daily I put those names on my blog. So that act really becomes so powerful. It become some kind of testimony, or to show this whole nation what an individual can act against the whole odds.
By naming individuals
Yes.
whose lives have been lost.
Who are they, and what's their birthday, and which age, and which class. And it's so shocking. We are totally involved. I don't think it's art or not art. And it's an expression which have a lot of people listen, and a lot of people care and relate to life. So we would just, but we need a form. So every day I would light up a candle and just the image of candle, and also put on internet. And so people just waiting for our names till my blog got totally shut down by the government. Then later, I got all kind of trouble. But that's the beginning. But till very late, I don't know how to carry that emotions to the public. How to make it to be remembered, how to be at least to be recognized.
How to make a memorial, I suppose.
Yeah. So first, when we did the show in Hauskunst Munich, I did the facade with one line of words. She has been living in this world happily for 7 years. That's from a mother of a daughter, 7 years old, a dancer, just lost her life. So her mom said, I don't want state pay us money but I just wanted she to be remembered. So I used 9,000 students' backpacks to construct one line. And also years later, I realized I still can get the irons they take out from those rebels, because they resell the irons to iron company.
It's the steel rebar.
Yeah. We managed to build all those rebars, and I don't know what to do with it. It's so I come up the minimum way to straighten it to the original look when it's just come out of factory. So we have a lot of people start to bend and knock it into a straight piece. That time I got arrested. And after 81 days, I was released. I went to my studio. Before I arrived, I heard that people are still, like ding, 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 they're still working on it. That gave me such joy. I always remember those sounds.
So, if you understood, when he decided to at least collect the names, the teams he sent out got arrested. His website was taken down, but he still persisted. And eventually he made some really important work from that. Not just this backpack piece, but he did amass names of over 5,000 kids who died because they were at school that day. The earthquake hit. And then probably the most emotional piece from this is the straightened rebar. He was saying iron. He didn't know, he wasn't sure of the word. But so he was arrested um, for tax evasion. Um, and nobody in China pays taxes, so it was really a fake charge. But no one heard from him. He was allowed no contact for 80, how long? I think he said 81 days. And the world was going, like, where's Wei Wei? There was this big panic because nobody had heard from him. During that time, he was tortured, um, and they were trying to, change the way he thought and, scare him. They threatened him with several years imprisonment and all of that. And to, I think, the world's pressure, they finally had to release him because he hadn't done anything wrong except for gather the names and tell people the names of the kids who died. Um, he was attacked at one point when he was trying to gather names. He actually recorded it. It's in a lot of any videos that you watch of him, he's always got his phone and he's recording and he's taking pictures and he's doing this kind of stuff. There's a knock at his door in the middle of the night and he turns on his recorder and you can hear the people coming in and they beat him and his brain swells and he actually almost dies. And so here are some pictures of that occasion and he's documenting it. And then in the top left one, again, he's flipping off, those that would hurt him. Again, that same irreverent rebel, just, you're not going to get this kind of thing. And so then, of course, he had a huge following, and people are upset. He still made it. So he gets out of jail. They take his passport, so he can't leave China. And when he first comes out, he wants to talk to people, but he's not allowed. And he's scared because now he's been held in a jail cell for 81 days without daylight, without being able to talk to anybody. And he doesn't want to go back. So he's frightened. So he tells people he's okay, that he's all right, but he's on house arrest and he can't come out. He still is able to have shows during those years where he's locked up, and he manages to have some really impressive, important shows. And it's like the art world, around the world, really helps his career, and they do things for him that they may not do for other artists. So this straight piece gets seen, multiple different places around the world, and it's moving. It's one of the, like I said, I think it's a really emotional piece. There's so much of this rebar, but it didn't work. It didn't save those 69,000 people and over 5,000 children, right? Because the Chinese government controls all building, all everything. And they've been known to cut corners. And so this is like a protest piece about that. It's really quite amazing. And then when you see them all together like this, it's just awesome. It's just awesome. So this is during that arrest period. People are protesting. It's all over the internet. People are wearing shirt. Where is a Wei Wei? It's really quite a thing. And here he is telling reporters, and you can see someone's filming the whole event from behind him, that he's okay, he can't speak, but he's back at home now. He does make art about it. And his life under surveillance begins. I mean, he was always probably being surveilled, but this is very obvious surveil. So this is the gate to his home in his studio, this greenish door. And across the street are these cameras that are, projected right where he comes and goes. And so part of his protest is that he has this bicycle here, is chained to this tree, and every day he changes the flowers for the people that are monitoring him. It's a total like flipping off the people. And then he starts making these surveillance cameras. So they're about his life. They're about China's insecurity about its people. It's wanting to have control over its people. He makes this. I would love to own one of these, by the way. I just think, I'm not as big a rebel as he is, but I admire that in him. And he makes this. He starts making movies, and his first movie that won some awards was called Never Sorry. And it's about, what kind of happens to him. In 2010, he's able to get his passport back. He's allowed minimal travel. And he does this amazing sunflower seed, where he I don't know how many billion of sunflower seeds he painted and had made. Actually, he hired a town that used to make a lot of porcelain, and they had not seen any business from the government. So he hires the whole town. It gives them jobs to make billions and billions of hand-painted sunflower seeds. And then he fills up the Tate Modern lobby, which is this huge industrial area, and fills it with seeds. So again, he's tapping his cultural heritage and the artisans who can make these really detailed things, handmade, and reviving a town at the same time. And again, these are all hand painted, ceramic, or I should say porcelain. And so here people are interacting with his piece, right? Eventually they found out that after too many people are on there, the dust from the broken porcelain was causing people to cough. And so just to be on the safe side, they made it so you couldn't walk on it. But another interesting thing, he decides to make another artist colony type place in, I'm going to say Shanghai, but I don't think that's right. I think it's it's just another region of China. And he gets all the approval. It gets to this stage of building, like they're just about to open. They're kind of finishing things here and there. And then overnight, it goes from looking like this to being totally demolished. In 2011, at Shanghai, Studios was demolished overnight, and they said it was because he didn't file the right paperwork. So I have to call total BS on this, because how do you get so far, right? The Chinese government controls everything. Yeah. So this is the kind of stuff he's dealing with. Here, all of his tweets and thoughts and things like that are printed out and then posted around this fence in England. He is having, this is when he cannot travel as much. He has a really pivotal show at Alcatraz, where he makes these Chinese kites that are just gorgeous. And he's becoming more and more aware of the world's subconscious, basically. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have seen the image in the small image from 2016, where a young boy, Syrian boy, died as he was trying to escape the civil war in Syria, and he drowned and his body washed up. I should say he did get his passport back, and he left China. He moved to Germany to be a teacher at a university in Germany. And he hated to leave China. He doesn't hate China. He actually loves China. He just wants people to be able to have their own thoughts. And so he starts, he becomes aware of the migration that's happening as people around the world have to escape their country in order to save their lives. And he feels like he's had to do the same thing in a sense. And so he does this self-portrait. as if he was the child. This kind of hit people the wrong way. Some people didn't appreciate his sentiment. Some people could see that relationship. You know, I can see the relationship. I think it's just was a really difficult image to recreate, because there's nothing more vulnerable than a child, because he has no control over anything. But what he started doing was making, finding out, investigating, started to film all these migrants and these life vests that he started to do installation with. And this hashtag safe passage was something that was documenting all that. And he started to make a film. And, you know, this is something that I think all of us should understand. People are being selfish, very greedy, short-sighted, and ridiculous. This is not a regional problem. It is a human problem. The bad guys are everywhere, but also the good guys are. We have to trust in humanity, but not trust in politicians. So basically, it's like, are you going to save somebody? If you have the chance to save somebody, are you going to do it? Because only humans going to, you know, policy and things like that don't help people survive. And so he kept doing these, you know, rafts and different things like this. Here in Prague, he built one of the largest life rafts ever. Again, it's an art piece. It's a sculpture, right? But it talks about trying to save as many as you possibly can. Again, more installation pieces all over Europe and Eastern Europe. Again, with the same idea, these are random items, you know, like one shoe. Sometimes there's a pair, but one, and then it's just all this masses of leftover objects and things people had to leave behind. So he does make a beautiful film, if you want to watch it. It's not a requirement for this, but it's called Human Flow. And it's about the people who are living, have to now, have been pretty much living in these camps, migrant camps, for years now. And it's their only safe place, because no country will take them in, and they still can't go back because for political reasons. These installations started in New York City about the time he was doing the Human Flow, and Trump was being elected, and he was talking about building the wall that whole time. And I can't remember if this is before the election or after, but it was these pieces in New York City were called "Good Fences Make Good Neighbors." And you may have heard that before, you know, the taller your fence, you don't get bothered by your neighbors. And here he did these in New York. Very interesting work. And he put up pieces all through the city. CBS did a thing of this. If you want to see a short little video, it's really quite interesting. Here, this is his sculpture in between, you know, the arch. I think this is Washington Square Park. Here's another piece. It's a knitted fence gate covering, you know, place people can interact with. Even, you know, even this is a fence around a bus stop, you know, another seat separating. So I follow a Wei Wei, and you can look at his blog here, or you can follow him on Twitter. A lot of times I'll get a Twitter from him that has been censored. And you can also go to his website where you can see different artists at his art colony kind of place. So, you know, I really wanted you to think of this as someone, a contemporary, that's doing social and political art about, you know, being from China, about trying to be provocative in today's world in China. So again, watch the video, and then tell me what you think about the video. Okay, just about a paragraph. due next Wednesday. Okay, guys, stay safe.